The Kenya case is a really interesting one, and Otachi, we worked on that one. Luckily, one of our clients was released. The conflict was pretty bad, and I won't go into all the details, but the person who may have the greatest political responsibility in that outbreak of pretty serious violence and a lot of displaced people and a lot of people murdered and a lot of burning houses was Odinga Odinga. Pro-Western man, supporting Ouattara in the Ivory Coast. And there's a human rights discussion of an initial report which was leaked, which blamed him, and that disappeared. And then they brought in the other people. So once again, the prosecutorial policy at the ICC is a guarantee of impunity for the person likely one of the most responsible. I'm not making general statements about everybody. Even on our side, maybe there was some responsibility. But the person who led it all, as in Rwanda, is being granted impunity, as is the president of Ivory Coast. I'm really concerned about the Kenya case, and the son of Mr. Kenyatta is being charged and is at risk. He's a presidential candidate, a charismatic man, a very capable man. Kenya is a viable country which has one fault, and it's been going this way for about 20 years. They're starting to do business elsewhere, and Britain and the US don't like it. Let's talk about his dad's trial. His dad was convicted for being a Mau Mau supporter. He wasn't actually, on false evidence, and the false evidence was uncovered in 1958 after the trial in 1953. I wonder if that's going to happen again, and I can't give names because it's secret evidence, but we know that the evidence against Mr. Kenyatta is false. Beth Lyons talked to you about false evidence, and I won't go into that, and Nancy Coombs talked about it, but we have another good example of the alternate judge in the Taylor trial. They have these long trials, and they have an alternate judge sitting in just in case someone dies. And the alternate judge, who heard everything, participated in everything, at the end of the trial, he spoke up and said, and it's a bit too long to say it all, but he said, I could not discuss in deliberations, so I'm forced to speak now, I'm paraphrasing. And he said, this case does not provide evidence beyond all reasonable doubt, and the evidence discredits justice. International criminal justice we all believe in, because we do believe in justice. And the steel grate came down, and he was muzzled. And by the way, we have the transcripts. Melissa got me the transcript, and we have it, so you're all welcome to contact me and have that transcript. And this should be in our book. There's some other ironies. How much time do I have?
10 minutes.
I have 10 minutes. There's some other ironies in this whole ICC. Last year, the African Union doesn't accept to charge Mr. el-Bashir and lets him travel, which they should do, and rightfully are doing so. But Malawi, in last autumn, before at the end of 2011, allowed him to come, and so Ocampo took it to the Security Council, and here we have the Security Council, controlled mostly by the U.S., and I know that the U.S. and China and Russia haven't signed the ICC statute either. Here we have these people, in particular the U.S., I think, above the law, deciding on possible sanctions against Malawi. So it's really strange. And the Security Council also authorized charges against the Libyan leaders. And we all know, many of you know, that the U.S. has, I think, 102 bilateral agreements under Article 98 of the ICC statute guaranteeing impunity for Americans. I want to comment briefly on universal jurisdiction. many white countries have assumed the right to judge Africans in their countries. And I have a list which may not be complete: Canada, Finland, Germany, France, Great Britain, United States, and Sweden. I think it's wrong, and it's whites judging blacks. We know the problems of evidence and syndicated testimony. We didn't talk a lot about syndicated, organized testimony. It's very important to understand that. There's a problem in law. If I testify in a murder trial in Canada and I lie, I can be charged with perjury. And that's some protection for some correctness in our legal system. The national legal systems have some value. I know there's a lot of faults. But with these international trials held in Canada or held in France, perjury charges against witnesses who are in Rwanda are virtually impossible. There's extradition treaties don't generally cover perjury. Some of them testify by video link. They cannot be thrown in jail for perjury. So the process is flawed and is below the standard of national procedure and security in the legal process. And there's an example also. What if Kenya decided to judge George Bush for the war in Iraq? Why not? Well, I think would cause a problem. There's another problem, because we're trying to touch base with many problems. The problem of immigration. Here they'll take Andre and say, well, there's reasonable grounds to believe he committed a war crime. He's a permanent resident here. And they can take away his permanent residence based on very low level of evidence. And the trial is very difficult to win. It can be won, but it's very difficult, very expensive. And this is a shortcut they're using to try and demonize people. We've had people coming for weddings from Great Britain who are former ministers or high civil servants in Rwanda who are stopped because they're war criminals, presumed war criminals. And I know there's people in the room here who know a lot about this. I'm not going to individualize these things. And Ian talked about the Uwinkindi decision, which is very bad. And he explained, I didn't know all the details, he explained it. I want to just say one thing. And it's going to be publicized. I'm not scared of saying it. One of the judges was Robert Fremmer, who, middle-of-the-road man, he'd written something critical of the ICTR trials, only charging one side. But he was one of the thinker-type judges who authorized the transfer. We were a bit surprised because the situation in Rwanda is worse now than in 2007 when they refused the transfer. Okay, he just became named as a judge to the ICC. I don't know if there's any connection.